Okay, we're gonna go down memory lane, and I wanna ask, what is a fond or favorite memory that just comes to mind for you? Okay, any memory that just brings back good vibes, just kind of makes you feel good when you think about it? Like, what are even just some of the memories come into your mind right now when you think about it? Because when I get asked that question, yes, I have some memories of some ski trips I've taken in the past that were wonderful, some vacations, yes, some family memories. You know what was a weird one that came to my mind when I first thought of that? Right after Nicole and I got married, the first thing we did officially as a married couple is we binge watched all 8 seasons of 24 in a very short amount of time. And that is one of my favorite memories in our entire married life. I'm not saying that was a good use of time. I'm just saying I really enjoyed it. Now, also though, okay, maybe not just fond memories. Do you have any embarrassing memories? Anything come to your mind where you're like, I just want to crawl in a hole and die? I remember this moment like yesterday. Freshman year of high school. 14 years old, brand new school. There's seniors in that building, guys. You remember what seniors look like when you're a freshman? It is survival of the fittest, and it was one of the first PE classes I ever had. We're in the gym. There's hundreds of kids in this room, and Sean Kuhn, yes, I will call out your last name too, Sean. I still remember you. Sean Kuhn pulls my gym shorts down right in the middle of the gym, and he got a little bit more than the gym shorts, if I can just say that. And that is how I started my high school career, and I never came back from that moment, by the way. Now, isn't it funny that you can't even remember what you had for lunch 2 Tuesdays ago, but you can remember stuff from years ago, even decades ago in your life? Do you remember your first kiss? Do you remember it? Was it good or was it gross? Which one was it? Some of you guys can't say. You're sitting next to your spouse. You're like, Brian, no, not right now. Maybe you remember that moment when you first got the news, we're pregnant. You remember that news? And I think it's so funny when guys say, we're pregnant. Because I'm like, bro, you are not pregnant. You are not. Okay, I'll give you some credit. You helped, but you're not pregnant. Okay, let's give credit where credit is due. Now, there's a lot of memories, though, that just get imprinted on your memory box. I can't even believe this, but this year, 2026, will be the 25-year anniversary of 9/11, a quarter of a century. Now, I know there's some people in the room, you weren't even alive when this went down. This is starting to feel like history. But a lot of us in here, you remember exactly where you were when you got that news, don't you? Seriously, that is imprinted in my consciousness. 7th grade, Indian Trail Middle School, at the drinking fountain, Brian Goff runs up to me and says, planes just flew into the towers there in New York City. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. And so you have these moments of joy that you remember, moments of pain, significant moments, memorable moments, and I keep saying this word because this is actually where we are going the next couple weeks in a brand new series we are calling Moments. Now, isn't it kind of amazing what can happen in a single moment? Your entire life can change in one moment. The world has been completely changed in moments. And even just that memory exercise there shows us not all moments are created equal. So you got a lot of moments in your life that are very mundane. You don't even remember them. You have other moments that mark you and make you into the very person that you are today. And this is really kind of where we're going in this series, guys. This is just one of my premises. We are not always good at measuring the moments in our lives. So we're not always good at recognizing the significance of a moment. We're not always good at capturing a moment when it's happening, and sometimes it passes us by. And here's what we're going to learn in the coming weeks. God often views the moments of our lives very differently than we do. And so the goal of this series is for us to actually learn how to make the most of the moments that matter the most for us. And so today, guys, I'll sometimes do this for a series. I have to lay some foundation. That's sometimes what the first week has to be. So today, we're going to get some concrete down on the ground so we can build on it in the coming weeks. So here we go, foundation laying day. Because we actually have really 2 verses here that are going to drive this whole series. And in Ephesians 5, Paul wrote this letter in the New Testament. He said this, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of your time." Now, at first read, most of our brains do this when we read what Paul says. We go, yeah, I probably do waste a lot of time. I doom scroll. I watch 8 seasons of 24 in 2 weeks. I get it, Paul. I am a lazy slob and I need to get it together. That's how we usually first read this. Now, here's what's interesting. Paul here is actually not talking about time management. He's not talking about productivity. He is not talking about maximizing your minutes or just being busy. This is actually kind of cool about how the Bible talks about this topic, because the Bible actually has 2 different kinds of time that it talks about. So, for example, the Bible absolutely does talk about what you would call clock time. Okay, so this is the sequential, measurable, quantitative time of life. So we say, what time is it? Which, by the way, what time is it? Okay, 9:31. I got about 3 more hours in my sermon. Good, okay. Plenty of time. What time? So this is how we usually think about time, though. This is usually where our minds first go. I got to squeeze all the potential out of the time. But this is what's kind of fascinating. The Bible also talks about another type of time. And for our purposes, we're actually going to call this appointed time. Now, another way to say this might be opportune moment, the right time. You could even call this God's time. Now, here's what's interesting about how the Bible talks about this time. This is time not defined by how long it is, but by what happens in it. So it's not quantitative, it's qualitative. And we already get this on some level, because there are moments in your life that can be short but very significant. So some of us in here, you might remember that moment maybe when that person asked, "Will you marry me?" That's a moment. How long does that take? 3 seconds? But that whole moment changes your whole life. That was the best moment in Nicole's entire life when it happened to her. Was it? Now, here's what's kind of cool. There's time, the Bible says, that has significance to it. There's time in your life that has weight. It has purpose. And this is why actually some other translations of Ephesians here actually say it this way: making the most of every opportunity. That's actually how it translates that. Because we're not just talking about time in the way we think about it. It's something so much bigger. It's something so much more profound. And really, this is the underlying point that Paul is trying to tell us here today that we need to get for this series. Paul is trying to tell us, God moves in moments. There are moments in your life that have divine significance. Paul is saying there's moments in your life that matter on a cosmic scale. And really, this is the message of the Bible. Time is not just measured in minutes, it's measured in meaning. So this is where we need to start kind of aligning the way we think about this with the way God thinks about it. So I just want to kind of give us a little bit of a biblical high-level overview so we can get this. In Daniel, the Old Testament, Daniel, the lion's den guy, chapter 2, it says, he controls all times and seasons. This is talking about God. So God has all authority, all power, all dominion, all sovereignty over every event across every moment of human history. Macro moments, micro moments, every single moment. And then you fast forward to the New Testament, where Paul says this in Acts 17. From one man, he created all the nations throughout the whole earth. He marked out there, look at this, appointed times. And what Paul is trying to say here is human existence is not random. God made us, and he didn't just make us and check out and watch us like a TV show. No, he marked out the times, not just clock time, appointed times. And then God drew boundaries around the very details of our lives. One more here. Psalm 31 says, "My times are in your hands." Times. All times. Every time. The good times, the bad times, the big moments, the little moments. Your entire life is in God's hands. Now, do not miss the imagery there. It did not say God is looking at your life. It's not saying he's watching from a distance. No, your life is in his hands. So this is an idea of proximity, intimacy, closeness. Every single moment is under the very care of God's close watch and handling. And so what am I trying to say here, guys? Again, foundation message. You are not just skin and bones taking up space. You are not just here because we just so happen to pop up on a random planet that's spinning around space in the middle of nowhere. You don't just exist to try to make a little bit of money, try to avoid a little bit of suffering, try to have some fun, to buy groceries, to go to school, to go to work. No, God made your life. He designed your life. He's in your life. And so what that means is your life really, 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 really matters. Whether you see it or not, the God of the universe is moving in the moments of your life. And he wants to infuse these moments with his very purposes, his plans, and even the future he has for you. And so Paul is saying, you need to see your life the way God sees it. He's moving in the very moments of your life. But while that's the case, we do have to acknowledge just a reality here. We do have to talk for a minute about missing moments. Missing moments. Let's go back to this Ephesians verse. Paul says, be very careful then how you live. Not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of your time. Again, moments, opportunities, God moving, God showing up, not just getting every minute of your schedule lined up. No, God time. So Paul's like, you better be intentional. You better be on top of your life because it really matters. But now, interestingly, Paul now gives us the reason for why he's even saying this. Here's his reason. He says, because the days are evil. Now that's kind of like, what is Paul even saying there? What does that even mean? Now Paul actually here is not just saying, hey, the entire world is just horrible. It's just a mess. Nothing is good in your life at all. He's not saying that at all. He's actually using a little bit of a figure of speech here, and he's talking about the prevailing spiritual climate of our world. And what Paul is saying is the dynamics of the world are such that they work against you making the most of the moment. There are forces pushing against you from making the most of your life. So when Paul says the days are evil, again, he's not talking about like all this crazy stuff you'd think of with horror movies and stuff. No, he's saying your days, if you're not careful, are going to be overflowing with distraction, with busyness, with stress, with pressure, with rushing around. And if you are not careful, all the responsibilities, all the requirements, all the commitments and busyness of your life will pull you away from God. So just in the last couple weeks, soccer season officially started for the bigger family. And boy, I tell you, we are at that age now, guys, where the sports are like all consuming. And so, you know, it's practices all week, all day on the weekends you're at the soccer fields, and that's on top of everything else you have going on. So I feel like right before all these sports season starts, Nicole just is like, okay, deep breath. We can do this. We can do this. And so literally just the other Saturday, we're on the fields all day doing this thing, and I actually run into a dad that I hadn't seen in a little bit because our kids have played sports together. And so we're just catching up, and I'm like, so man, what's going on in your life right now? What's new? And he said, Brian, yesterday we had a gymnastics tournament. Today, 2 flag football games, 2 soccer games. The girls then are going to go to a birthday party. I have to take the boys to another event. My wife is still working nights during the week as a nurse, and I'm still trying to run the family business. And I was half joking with him. I said, so dude, when do you sleep? And he said, I'll sleep when I die. Now, Sometimes you just got busy seasons. And that's not even necessarily a bad thing, but Paul says you better be careful. Because while your life may be full, even full with a lot of good things, you are at risk of missing moments in your life. Because God's moving in your life. And what a tragedy it would be for you to miss the moments that make up your life. For you to miss the moments that God is moving in your life. And what a tragedy it would be for you to live your entire life and ultimately miss God and everything he wanted to do. Have you missed any moments in your life? You know, it's funny when you talk to people, I feel like I hear this story a fair amount of time. People say, man, I wasted those years I was in school. I was zoned out. I didn't care. I barely got through by the skin of my teeth. And then the moment came where it really mattered, when I started thinking about college and careers, and a lot of opportunities were limited for me because I didn't make the most of that moment. And how many times have you heard, I wasted years of my life in a relationship? Like, it wasn't good for that person. It wasn't good for me. For some reason, both of us stayed way longer than we should have. And now I can't get that time back. All I have is a bunch of regrets from that season. It was just a wasted moment. We say this all the time. I screwed those years up when my kids were young. And now that moment has passed. And now my relationship with my adult children is strained at best. For some of us in here, it's non-existent. We have stories where we say, man, I spent so much of my life just in that addiction. Time I'll never get back. I spent so much of my life chasing money, obsessed with my career. I spent so much of my life where God wasn't even on my radar. And guys, I think if we're all honest here, every single one of us here would say, I have missed moments in my life. I've squandered moments. I've messed them up. There are times where I have not lived the life that I know God really wanted me to live, and there's no going back. Now, if you do feel that way about any moments in your life, I bet some of us here, you're like, that's how I feel right now about my life. Like, I've just messed so many things up. Can I share a little something with you? Something kind of cool. We talked about this verse where Paul says, making the most, right? Now, what's interesting about this is actually one single word in Paul's language, Greek, where he's writing this. It's one word, and it's used 4 times in the entire New Testament. 4 times. 2 times, when Paul uses it, he's talking about time. Making the most of your moments. But the other 2 times, Paul uses this exact word for Jesus. Because making the most is literally translated as redeem. Now, this word redeem was actually just a marketplace term at the time. It was like a business word. And so it means literally to buy something back, to reclaim something that was lost or trapped or even stuck. So it's this idea of you pay a personal price so something that's in the wrong place can be set free. Hope you all see where I'm going with this. So all of us here, guys, on some level, every single person here, we get lost. We go the wrong way. We mess up moments in our lives. We get stuck. We fall short. We even fail. But boy, do I got a word for you guys. Because yes, while every single person in here, you've missed moments. I've missed moments. We've messed the moments of our lives up. While that is true, Paul could not say it more clearly. In Galatians 3, he says, Christ redeemed us. And so what Paul is saying here is, oh yes, every single one of us, you were sold out to sin. We had no future. We had no hope. We were trying to figure it out for ourselves. And then Jesus bought you back. And on that cross, he paid the full price so you could be redeemed. So you could have new life. So you could have eternal life. And see, this is what I'm trying to tell you guys today. The God who can redeem your soul is the same God who can redeem your moments. Because if God can take the worst moment in human history, the murder of his own son on a cross, and turn that into the single greatest moment that has ever happened, resurrection from the dead, new life, forgiveness and grace for us, I'm telling you, he can redeem any moment in your entire life. He absolutely can. He can transform any moment into a story of his grace, his goodness, his forgiveness, and he will. And so for any of us in here, you actually do not have to live with a steaming pile of regret. You do not have to live just looking back and wondering what if, or should have, or could have. No. You have a redeeming God. And he will not just redeem your moments, he will redeem your entire life. And so, guys, that's some good news right there. God never wastes a moment, even when we do. But if that's the case, you know what this means? With Jesus' help, with God's redeeming power, you can make the most of your time. You can maximize the moments of your life. You can actually live the life that God made you to live. No matter what's happened before or what's coming ahead, you can do it. And so I want to spend the rest of the time here, guys, about making the most of moments. Making the most of moments. See, God is already moving in the moments of your life. It is our job now to recognize them, to make the most of them, to step into them. So how do we even do that? How do you make sure you're living in the moments God has for you? That you're experiencing everything that he has planned out for your life? Well, first thing, guys, very practical. We have to make sure we slow down and pay attention. Slow down and pay attention. Now, how interesting that Paul really wanted to make sure we knew the days are evil. So Paul is saying, your greatest temptation and my greatest temptation is that we would just live by clock time. So we're just always focused on the next thing. We're always caught up in all of our commitments and the activities and the things we have going on. We're always just trying to maximize our productivity. And Paul says the risk of that is you end up missing the appointed times. You end up missing where God is moving in your life. And I know when I even say some of this stuff, sometimes people are like, well, Brian, what do you want me to do? Just not work? Am I just supposed to quit my job or something? What, are my kids not supposed to be in soccer? Like, what am I supposed to do? Life is just busy. And I totally get that, guys. I'm living in that reality too. But sometimes it's not so much about slowing down your schedule. It's about slowing down your soul. And you actually have to learn the skill of being present in the moment. So you then can get better at recognizing God in it. There's this famous psalm in the Bible that says, "Be still and know that I am God." And so you actually have to discipline yourself where you slow down your heart and your mind and you say, well, hold up. God controls the times and the seasons. God has already marked out my appointed times. God has my entire life right in his hands. And so instead of always stressing about, well, I got a million things going on and I got to do this and this is coming up and that's going on and what's going to happen and what, blah, 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 blah. No, you got to step out of your clock time and you got to get into God's time. And in those moments where you start feeling your head spinning, you actually have to learn how to slow your soul. And you got to tell yourself, God is God and I am not. Do you know how to take a moment to be present with God? Do you know how to just sit in a moment? Because as you learn how to be right here, right now, here's what will happen. You are going to become more attuned to God and his presence in your life. And you are actually going to get better at recognizing the God moments in your life. And you will be able to make the most of them. But you better slow your soul. But you also got to do this second thing here. all of us, we got to commit. You want to make the most of moments? You have to look for God in the mundane moments. Now, this is probably one of the biggest mistakes we make when we think about faith and what it looks like to follow God. Because we think, oh, if God's going to move in my life, it's going to be huge. It's going to be massive. He's going to split the heavens and write it in cursive in the clouds for me. It's just, he's going to part the sea. I'm going to walk on water. That is how I know God's going to be moving in my life. And here's the thing, guys. There's this funny story in the Old Testament. I think there's a lot of humor in the Bible. You just got to see it. In Genesis 18, it tells us a story about Abraham. Look what it says. One day, Abraham was sitting at the entrance to his tent during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and noticed 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he ran to meet them and welcomed them. Now, what is going on here? This time, there was a massive hospitality culture, especially in this area. You took care of strangers and people you didn't know. This was nothing like Colorado, where we pull our cars in the garage, close the garage, and avoid our neighbors at all costs. Okay, very different culture. So Abraham sees these 3 guys, it's hot out, he's like, dude, I'm gonna make them some lunch. So they're sitting on the back patio, they're eating hot dogs and Doritos, Cooler Ranch flavored, because that is a much better flavor, but they're just having a cookout. And Abraham, he didn't even know it at this moment, but it was not mundane at all. This ended up being a God moment in his life. And God used an afternoon cookout to change the entire trajectory of his life. And not even just his life. At this one little barbecue, God changed the tides of human history over hot dogs. Hebrews 13, New Testament. Kind of an interesting verse to be in the Bible. It says this, don't forget to show hospitality to strangers, for some who have done this have entertained angels without knowing it. Now, let me acknowledge something. There is a whole rabbit hole we can go down right now on angels and all those things. I get it. But look at what the message is here. What is Hebrews saying? He's saying there is so much more going on than we sometimes see. Way more. Big things, God things, supernatural things. God is moving in the seemingly mundane moments of your life. And guys, boy, last week was Easter. Anybody who's here, you remember that moment where Dave and Stacy actually shared some of their story with our church. And I just got to say, guys, I thought they did such a good job. I was so grateful for them sharing some of their journey. I really thought they did an incredible job with that. And I also want to say, guys, they texted me later that day, and they were like, Brian, there were so many people from the church who then recognized us and were coming up to us at church and just saying so many kind and encouraging things. So good job, church, on just loving on this community. But I tell you guys, my experience with Dave and Stacy was a profound reminder to me of the power of the mundane. Because it was actually 3 years ago when I was just hanging out at my neighborhood park, fetching with my dog. And it was that very day where a man came out with his dog and was playing with his dog. Never seen this guy before, never seen the dog. And so we did what Colorado people do. We ignored each other for like 30 minutes. It's like, I don't talk to you, you don't talk to me, we're all good, right? But we finally worked our way over to each other, and he puts his hand, he says, hey, I'm Dave, I'm Brian, just moved in the neighborhood, nice to meet you. We do all the little chit-chat stuff. And then Dave actually, even that first time meeting each other, started to share with me some of these little details about this car accident that he and his wife Stacy had been in. And I'll tell you guys, at that moment, I did not fully appreciate what that actually meant. I didn't understand what that all entailed. But Dave and I, we did something very mundane. We exchanged phone numbers. That's all we did. Hey man, I live right down the street. If you need anything, here's your number, you get to reach out. And so we'd text each other every now and then. We'd see each other at the park. We just kept the conversation going. Now, if you had asked me, hey Brian, do you think that maybe, just maybe, this man you just met, he and his wife are being taken on a transformational journey of both spiritual and physical healing that's going to be a pivot moment in their lives that's going to change their entire marriage, their future trajectory, and their whole lives together. Do you think that might be happening in this moment? I'd be like, no. We're 2 dudes with dogs who live in the same neighborhood. But see, that's exactly what God was doing in their life. And now that I've seen how this is all played out and the journey they've been on, God used that, man, to challenge me. Because I felt like God was saying, Brian, you got to make sure you do not miss these moments. Because they look very mundane to you, but I am moving in them. I'm doing powerful things. I'm doing life-changing things if you would just open your eyes to it. You got to look for God in the mundane moments of your life. Because you have no idea what he's doing in your life. You have no idea what he's doing in the people around you. He may be changing history, and you're eating a hot dog. So one more thing here, guys. You want to make the most of the moments. You want God's moving in your life. All of us have to make sure we start to create moments for God. So if you look at any person in the Bible, or history for that matter, where God moved powerfully in their life, where they saw incredible God moments, where they lived the life that God made for them, you are going to see this with exact 100% perfect correlation. Every single one of these people that made the most of the moment, they made space for God in their lives. They did not crowd God out with their schedules. They did not push him out with their busy plans and everything they had going on. No, see, if you want to see God move in the moments of your life, you have to start by giving him some of yours. And actually, one way we could say this is this. As you make clock time for God, God makes appointed time for you. So the clock time that you give God actually helps you become the type of person that God can trust with appointed times, moments, him moving. And so I'm even wondering today, guys, I mean, this is so practical. Where can you make some clock time for God in your week? Maybe for some of us here, it's 5 or 10 minutes before the rest of the family's up in the morning and things get crazy. And you grab coffee and a Bible and you just take a little time to have a moment with Jesus. Some of us in here, maybe you're more artistically, musically inclined, and you just turn on some worship music and you sing to Jesus like it's American Idol and nobody else is listening, and that's just a moment for you. Maybe it's going out for a nice walk in the beautiful Colorado weather, and you just have a moment with God. You slow yourself down, you remove the distractions, and you just give God some clock time in your life. Guys, you know, even this morning, you're at church right now. You know you just gave God some clock time? You know, that's one of the reasons we do this is to church is an opportunity to say, God, I'm giving you a moment because I want you to move in mine. And so can I just say good job, everybody? You're here on a beautiful, sunny, 70-degree day in Colorado. You could be doing a lot of things right now. You're in church. And I'll tell you, God will honor that. And so you give God some of your clock, and he promises to redeem your time. He promises to buy back the moments in your life and use them for his good purposes. And so, church, in the coming weeks, I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to talk so much more about making the most of the moment. And not just any moment, God moments. Because God is moving in your life. And so we're going to talk about invisible moments, defining moments, messy moments, and we're going to talk about how you step into the moments God has for you. But this is where we need to start. This is where it all starts, everybody. God is in this moment.